welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on January the 30th, 2024. I'm your host, Game Psychologist, and with me, as always, the black dress, or no, was it the red dress? The red dress had to be washed. Now he's in the black dress, and we're ready to finish out our show.
There was a terrible incident with the Shikadra bot, so we had to shut down the venue for a while.
We did indeed. Good old Schick Hydra butt. So, we're back from outer space. Some things happened last week, and it interrupted us recording part 1 and part 2, 2 weeks in a row of the VGL Awards. But hey, we're here. Better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So,
plus it gives us more time with SteamWorld build.
It does. More time to try and pry me away from Baldur's Gate 3. And as we mentioned before we were recording, a smidgen of Pow World, which will come up. I don't want to get into that discussion again, especially because it's 10:30 and we're just now getting started with the recording proper. So, do you want to start, or do you want me to start? Like, we're just gonna dive in. Dicks first. Okay. Clear my throat. Sorry. So, to start block 3. We are going to go with the Niche Scratcher. The Niche Scratcher has always been a game that, for you or I, that's like, it's kind of a niche thing. It's very much our thing, and it's something that we can dig into and enjoy that maybe a lot of other people wouldn't. For me this year, I went with Railroaders. I love train sims, but lots of times I have a hard time finding a train sim that I really, really vibe with, because either you get something that's so realistic that it's difficult to play, which some people like that, and that's okay. Or you get something that says it's being a train simulator, but really it's not. It's some other type of thing, a management game, or it's a little more arcadey, and that's fine. I
sent you Choo Choo Charles for Christmas.
Oh God, fucking Spider Train? No, thank you. But Railroaders
doesn't pretend to not be a train.
That's true. So Railroaders is a train simulation game that is simulating a rail line in the Appalachian Mountains, roughly in the 1940s, 1950s, something like that. And it covers a lot of bases. I don't think I've had a chance to talk about this properly on the show, and I'm going to. But the best way I can describe it is it feels kind of like SnowRunner, in the ways that it gives you missions and jobs to do as you're sort of rebuilding this railway. But it is very simulator-y, without being too nitty-gritty. Like, it strikes a really good balance in doing some economy stuff, in doing a lot of, like, okay, I'm going to manage my rail yard, and I have to, like, get the trains set up just so, and travel distances, and watch my speed. But you don't have to shovel coal into into the furnace, into the tinderbox rather, to keep your steam pressure up. So very good. I played this for about 40 hours in December, like right at the end of the year. And the Niche Scratcher for me kind of regularly falls down to like one or a couple of games. It's been a weird thing here or there, but usually it's just something like really weird. And this one is very not weird, but it does fall perfectly into an actual niche of like train sims. So that's me. What about you?
Well, for me, I kind of fell into this one hard in the early part of the year and kind of got obsessed for a while. And we played this one together for a couple months.
Yeah.
I will admit I kind of fell off of it for a bit. I do intend to go back to it at some point. But yeah. Space Engineers. Just how crazy things could get in that game. And just kind of just whiling away the hours, building random shit, right?
Yeah.
I do believe you are still on the server holding a box of fish sticks in your cryotube.
Excellent. Thank you.
But yeah, it's a game about finding creative solutions for problems that you've created yourself, Yeah. Like, I need iron. Well, I'm going to build a mining vessel. Oh, this mining vessel is not very good. Let me tweak it a little bit. Let me upgrade this. Let me toy around with this. next thing you know, the sun's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And that's even before you start getting into the modding scene, which, oh boy, there's some fun ones. Like adding more aviation focused parts, having a more meaningful NPC existence on the server. Because in the base game, it's pretty much not a lot going on. There's some stuff going on, but on Earth where I started, not a lot going on.
Yeah.
But you can have it where bases will pop up every so often. Maybe a hostile vehicle swing by and take some pot shots at you, and it kind of spices things up,
Yeah.
And then it gives you another project to build. You seem to really like my little hover tanks I built.
I love those. Those are so good.
Yeah, I downloaded a mod that had hover engines, and originally I was going to build a scout vehicle, and I put like the motorcycle seat on it to drive it around. And it's like, why don't I just put a gun on this? It ended up being like this really effective little sniper tank. I mean, it's fragile as hell, but it wasn't originally built to be a tank. Something that goes into main combat. But yeah, it's just little things like that. And then, then you just have a giant spaceship crash into the side of your base because your turrets decide to take out its engines, and it can't fly without those, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
kind of important.
I sent you that screenshot.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so there's something on the lawn.
Whoopsie daisy. Made a mess.
Yeah, I think the reason why I put it down for a bit is that I captured a ship, a large grid, very large ship that was actually bigger than the base that's attached to. Mind you, I had a fairly decent sized base, and it was kind of overwhelming of just what to do next. And then I shot down another one, and I put it down intending to pick it back up, and just never did. But yeah, it's just I love little building games and having engineering challenges to solve. So that's what really got me with this one. Yeah, figuring out the logistics of base management, how to pipe stuff around, moving production to a safer spot. When the enemies decide to start dropping by a little bit more often, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but also just tinkering with things. I'm a bit of a tinkerer with my gadgets, so having space engineers really kind of scratch that niche, which I need to scratch again. It feels like.
Sounds like it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, sounds like it.
Yeah.
So what's?
Maybe I'll defrost you, and you could take the worm out and crash it again.
Crash it, yeah. Crash into something. I'm not the best designer.
Well, the thing is that you built a plunge miner, and they're very hard to control.
Yeah, especially because you were using a more realistic aerodynamics mod, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so especially for that.
Yeah, you didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
And I think you're, and I'm pretty sure if I was to look at the center mass on that thing, it's pretty high up on it.
It's very high, and all of the storage containers are very low. So the center of mass does change as you fill it up, but in the beginning, it's very unstable.
Yeah. Whenever I flew it to try to move it to a place that was less in the way, it was a little touch and go there.
Yeah.
So, greatest disappointment of the year. So, who's ready to talk about KSP2 again?
Sounds like you are.
Actually, this is a shared one. This is both KSP2 and City Skylines 2. Two games I was really looking forward to. And both of them are just in such rough shape. There's I'm starting to get a rule that if I'm on the main menu and I hear my GPU firing up to maximum and the game's doing nothing, that's a really bad sign.
Yeah.
Both these games did that. They're technically playable. KSP2 a little bit more so right now because it had a little bit more time in the early access oven. But both of them are just so rough. It is unbelievable that they were pushed out in this state. City Skylines 2 has major bugs with it that if you were to play it as a management game rather than a city painter, which I know, City Skylines, it's not really a management game. It's about building a pretty city. It has a management layer, sure, but that's not the meat of the game. It's about making little pretty cities and then getting pissed off at the traffic. But City Skylines 2 has a bug in it where essentially what you build in the very beginning of the game starts accumulating land value to the point that it basically becomes unaffordable for anybody. So you start seeing essentially a giant hole in your city slowly expanding outwards.
And not in a good way, if you know what I'm saying. Wink. Sorry,
there's on the City Skylines subreddit, there's so many people that saying to fix issues, just enable dev mode and do this. No, you shouldn't have to enable dev mode to fix something like that,
especially on the regular.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just double checking. I mean, City Skylines 2 is a $50 game, and it's not even early access. I mean, you could make the excuse for KSP 2 that, oh, sure, it's just early access. Never mind the fact that it's a $60 game, right? Or a $50 game. But it's still just, both of them are so difficult to recommend to anybody to play.
Yeah.
Even at this point, it's such a disappointment. And I was excited for both of these.
Yeah. Well, there's some similarities in what you talked about and what you put on yours and what I put on mine. Mine is Starfield. I put Starfield being so bad, and I don't know if that's, on reflection, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but Starfield is a weird one. It's this weird mix and amalgamation of like my feelings about games, the gaming industry. I wasn't hopeful for Starfield. Like I talked about this at length during the episode. So obviously, like for the full rundown, you can go back and listen to that Game Club episode. But I wasn't excited for Starfield per se, and I didn't have a lot of expectations for it. But the fact that it was so middling, so front loaded, and then so mediocre and pointless, and like such a waste of time, and it had all of the technical problems that it did, which, if your GPU fires up to 100% when you're not doing anything, just standing in a corridor, staring at a wall, like something's going on.
I didn't have that issue because I have an AMD card.
Right. And it's a reflection of the state of the gaming industry as well. Kind of a microcosm of, no, you're wrong from their point, because it was very much like it had the same kind of energy of like, do people not have phones? When it was asked about optimization, it's like, I guess you just need a better computer. Those kinds of things. And it's just, I cannot believe how disappointed I am in a game that I didn't have super great hopes for in the first place. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want it to be good. I want every game I play or am interested in to be good. But I don't, very rarely do I have expectations of any game, and especially a Bethesda game, at this point. Like, I mean, the writing has been on the wall for a long time for Bethesda. And there are some things because of my personality, like, we've gotten into discussion about Skyrim a bunch of times, and there are some things because of my personality that I like more, can put up with more. But Skyrim is definitely not as good of a game as their previous entries in any aspect except, graphical fidelity. And that kind of trend seems to continue.
And maybe a little bit of quality of life features or gameplay features,
Yeah. But, Starfield is just like the next conclusion of that. Like, there's a YouTuber that I watch, and I've mentioned him before, Patrician TV, and he does these massive, like, he did an 8-hour Morrowind deep dive, a 12-hour Oblivion, a 20-hour Skyrim, and an 8-hour Starfield, like, deep dive review, dissection, whatever. And he made a joke in his Skyrim video from 2 years ago now, I guess, year and a half, something like that. That was like, these games are designed so much around fast travel that, like, you just watch in Starfield, you're gonna have to fast travel everywhere, and like that was a joke. And then it's like, oh wait, they went and did it. It's like, so I was extremely disappointed in Starfield, and kind of as an extension through Starfield, just kind of the games industry in general. It's like, I have come to expect this from them, and they still are able to disappoint me with
Starfield is the Todd Howard of Todd Howard games.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many things in Starfield that it's obvious that Todd Howard wanted it to be there, but there was no reason to be there. Like the base building. The base building is there essentially to build resources for the Radiant quests that give you cash, but you don't really need the cash because you're getting cash.
The base building is there because that's what you're supposed to have in a space survival exploration game. And even though Starfield wasn't that, it's pretending to be that. So it's there for that because Todd said it needed to be, because that's the kind of game that we want to have. Forget that either it doesn't have or never have, or those mechanics were removed. No. It has to be there because that's what it's supposed to be. It's the kids who are wrong for game design. So, but yeah, that's it. It's just, I think the easiest way to say it is that it's an expression of my disappointment in the gaming industry, all refined down to one game and gaming experience, which this year was Starfield. So, moving on, the next thing, the Maybe I'm Old award. And maybe I'm old, but I don't understand the games that my kid and his friends play. Like, I've talked about this as in sort of small kind of micro events on an episode here or there, or like personally to you, or it shows up in Franken content. I just don't understand. I don't understand Roblox. Anything that you can play on Roblox is like, it's a shittier version of a game elsewhere. Lots of times that are free. I don't understand the way that people, the way that quote unquote the kids these days play even like Minecraft, a game that I recognize and can play, but Minecraft has become such a different beast with its own sort of lore and world building.
Oh, this ties into mine.
That I don't understand. My kid will talk to me about something. I'm like, who is that? What is that? What is this? What are you talking? It's like, oh, it's in Minecraft. I'm like, Minecraft? Like, Minecraft from like 2 years ago when like you and I were killing the Ender Dragon, and like, I realized you were like way better at this game than me, and this was the first. Like, yeah, Dad, well, there's these people and this thing, and they built this, and it's go online, and there's like Bed Wars. I'm like, what's Bed Wars? It's like, I know what Bed Wars is. I learned, but it's, and I fundamentally still don't understand Fortnite. And there's like the new Fortnite Lego thing, and I don't know if it's a separate game or if it's part of Fortnite or if it, who knows? I don't understand. I don't understand Among Us. I thought I understood Among Us. I've played Among Us. At times I have enjoyed Among Us, but not the Among Us that my kid and his friends play with weird, I don't know. It's all YouTube culture stuff. And the back rooms, I don't understand that. And there's a new one now that's kind of like back rooms, but it's not. And I don't even know what it's called. But I see my kid wanting to play it, and I'm like,
the fuck?
It's happening to me in the one thing that I thought I would be able to resist for a long time. But it's like, I'm just old. I'm just old and I don't get the culture of the kids these days. And that's okay. I don't have to, but I get so confused by the games that my kid and his friends play. Because even stuff that I recognize, like Minecraft or whatever, I'll come in and I'll be like, what are you playing? That looks like Minecraft, kind of. And it's, they're doing some weird thing that they saw in a YouTube video, and they're building something or doing something that's like part of a weird challenge. YouTube culture, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much to the extent of mine. Mine is my coworkers, listening to them talk about games, and it's more of a broader spectrum though. So, my youngest coworkers, there's a couple of girls I call the Iddles. They're high schoolers, seniors to be exact, and then there's all the way up to, I think the oldest is about 5 or 6 years older than me. I'm definitely on the upper spectrum. But hearing the Iddles talk about mobile games and just no idea what the fuck they're talking about. All right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which I will say that mobile gaming for me is like a black hole anyway, because it always feels like it's not worth my time to really dive into, because it's so predatory. There's so many microtransactions, or if it's not microtransactions, it's time gated. But if you, but that ties back into the microtransactions. If you don't want to wait, an hour or whatever, you can, give us 50 cents, give us $1, give us $10, give us your social security number. So I've always balked at a lot of mobile gaming, even though I know that there are paid games that, it's one and done, but those are a rarity. Then another one of my little group of coworkers are really, really, really into Fortnite and go back and forth, talk about Fortnite lore and talking about the different modes in it, and just eyes glaze over. I've never really cared about Fortnite, let alone having to deal with Epic and all that nonsense as well. But hearing them talk about the lore and speculation on the next season, it's just, damn, I feel out of place. And there's a couple others that their experience with gaming is, well, I play Bejeweled, right?
Yeah, that's the two ends of the spectrum right there.
Or Chicken Sensei is really into like this mobile Monopoly game that he's playing with a couple others, and it's all time gated. And I'm just standing here thinking, damn, that sounds like so boring,
Yeah.
Because at each turn, it doesn't go until like the next day. And don't get me wrong, Monopoly's fucking boring on its own. Which I know. It's a lot better if you play by the official rules and you don't add all the house rules, but honestly, Monopoly is just a tedious game to begin with.
Yeah, Monopoly's not a good game. I don't want to get too far off on the weeds here into Monopoly, but even playing by the rules that makes it tolerable, Monopoly is not a good game.
So there's just like different camps of, maybe I'm old, and having the one coworker that's just like, I really like Bejeweled, and these match threes are like, that's the one thing I understand, and oh fuck.
Yeah. Yep.
So
we're old. It's happening. We're old.
Yeah.
It's not maybe I'm old. It's I am old.
Maybe we should rename this one next year to Get Off My Fucking Lawn.
Get Off My Lawn. Absolutely. I'm here for that.
So we're up to our first Game of the Year award.
Yeah.
The Video Game Logic Award. And for me, there was only one answer. Cassette Beasts. It runs on Video Game Logic.
Mm-hmm.
These cassettes turn us into beasts. How does it work? We don't know. We don't care. It just does it. The entire game uh, is just video game logic, the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Didn't even register with you, Denam. Oh.
Well, I mean, I thought it's one of those things. It's just like you accept, like suspension of disbelief. Like you accept stuff like that. It's like, okay, I'm playing this video game. I'm in this world. But yeah, no, you're right. It's just 100%. Like they never explain it. It just is.
Yeah.
It just is. And it's not even a way that you can kind of look at it and kind of tilt your head sideways and be like, okay, I can see it. No, absolutely not. It makes no sense, but it's okay. It still works.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was Ixion. I put like in parentheses that you can see you can't birth new children, but there are a lot of little things in this game. Ixion is, I talked about this several months ago on the show, is a survival, like a space station management survival post-apocalyptic game where that some stuff happens, you wind up having to leave the Earth and go to try to colonize a new solar system. And there's a lot of video game logic in this game about how things work. And I enjoyed the game and I enjoyed the story that it told, but it's like I'm out in space for years, decades. Why are we not having new children? Why are these management policies like, why can we not like change things in smaller increments? Why can we not, why can't we cremate the bodies and the trash at the same time? Like, why can't we do both of those
Uncle
things?
George hold the bag of trash.
Yeah, like why can't we do both of those things at the same time? Why do I have to build this platform before I can build the extra solar panels that I need? Like, and it's video game logic. It's all like progression stuff you have to do. That you have to do some useless stuff that gets in the way and eats up resources before you can do the truly useful things that you need to do. Or you have to make choices. And I like the game, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good game. I think it's worth playing. But it has lots of those things in it where it's like, yeah, okay, all right, fine. I see what you're doing.
What you do?
Well, to the game. So, yeah. That is the Video Game Logic Award. So, next, the biggest video game flop that isn't Evolve. Poor Evolve. We haven't talked about it in years in any context except when we, put its name in our mouths for the awful game, video game flop. Mine this year, though, was Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Yeah.
I
mean, that has to be it.
I almost forgot about this game, but I'm like thinking, like I'm racking my brain, like what are some flops this year? And I remember
there's some good ones.
There were some good ones, and I remembered Redfall, and I thought about considering Starfield as flop, but then I decided to put it in the disappointment category. And so then I just Googled like video game flops for this year, and as soon as I saw Lord of the Rings, before I even read the entire title of whatever Polygon article, fluff piece I was reading, when I saw Lord of the Rings, I went, oh yeah, Lord of the Rings Gollum came out this year. And then came out with air quotes, because of how broken that game was. And to my knowledge, still is. Did they ever fix it?
The developer got shut down.
So, no, they never fixed it.
No, they never. The Lord of the Rings Gollum is such a sad tale. Because the developer was well known for their point-and-click adventures and basically wanted to branch out, and for whatever reason got the Lord of the Rings IP and spent a bunch of cash on it. And the thing is, you could do something interesting with Gollum, but I don't know why they decided to do it this way,
Yeah. So it looks like Lord of the Rings Gollum got a couple of patches before the studio shut down. And some people are saying it makes the game, I quote, with the latest patch in July, the game is now pretty playable. That is the most damning with faint praise I think I've heard in a while. Now that they have fixed it, it's pretty playable.
I mean, it's just sad because you look at the developer, and they did a lot of like adventure games and point and clicks. I mean, they did Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah.
Such a sad state.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I saw you already had Gollum, which was like my number one choice. So I decided to go on to the list of video game flops and pick one out myself. And I picked out Redfall, which was Arcane Studios' answer to a question nobody asked. What happens if you make Left 4 Dead, but forget to program all the enemies in?
Forget, air quotes.
I remember watching some reviews about this game when it came out, and there were so many reviewers that just would go from point A to point B. It's okay. Left 4 Dead's probably not the proper term for, comparison to this. It's more. Even saying an open world isn't the proper thing for it because it's more. It's like a contained like town map.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go anywhere in the town, as far as I could tell. But there was reviewers that would go from point A to point B for their missions, and not see a fucking thing attack them, which is rather damning for a first-person shooter, right?
Yeah.
Once again, a studio that is well known for making good games, just for whatever reason, shit out this turd. Although this one seemed a lot more like corporate meddling, pushing them into making this one outside of, for whatever reason, getting a IP that they had no business with.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Arcane Studios, which, we did Prey from them,
Yeah. Prey was good.
Wolfenstein, Deathloop. Okay, Deathloop maybe not so much, but yeah, they have a pedigree. They know how to build good games. But first person multiplayer focused,
not so much.
Not so much.
Which makes sense. Like, you take a developer that is good at doing a thing or a couple of types of things, and you take that away from them and try to make them do something else. Like, of course they're gonna, struggle. Like, maybe this is an extreme kind of example of that, but like, of course someone's gonna struggle when you throw them way out of their element.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised. Saddened, but not surprised.
Mm-hmm. Which that seemed to be the case for a lot of stuff this year. Just, developers either pushing out something that and a desperate hope of it catching on, or getting pushed into something that they aren't comfortable with.
Yeah. Tale as old as time. So, what's next? What you got next?
The least favorite Game Club game. A dubious game of the year. And for me, it was Need for Speed Unbound. Which, yes, I know, I picked the damn thing. But the thing is that the physics on that game just felt so wrong for a racing game that it just made me absolutely hate it from start to finish. It was more focused on like drift racing, doing fancy tricks, and not getting from point A to point B as fast as possible, which you would think would be a high priority in a racing game. I mean, the whole graphics issue of, for whatever reason, the world and the cars and everything were in, reasonably high quality graphics, but then player models and NPC models were, looks like cell shading, but they forgot to turn on the cell shading filter.
Yeah.
I could get past that. I actually kind of like the effects that they had on the cars. Whenever you'd boost and you'd see it glow, or if you did the boost in the air, it would have like little wings that would make you fly a little bit further, that sort of thing. But the game just never felt like it really was pulling off what it was trying to do. And it might also just be the fact that, AAA company talking about going to the streets and being underground. No, not EA these days.
No. Yeah, I will say Need for Speed Unbound, like, a lot of the Game Club games from this year were fine. Like, we had some standout ones. There were some very good ones. But, like, when it comes to me picking this one out, I had to think about, like, which ones are ones that I actually had some problems with. Even though most of them, maybe all of them this past year, were pretty good. Like, which ones did I actually have a problem with? And I thought about Need for Speed, but for me, Need for Speed was just like, it was fine. Some cringy moments, didn't love it, didn't hate it, felt kind of middle of the road to me overall. So I don't want to like steal your thunder if you're not done talking about Need for Speed. I won't move into mine just yet.
No, I'm pretty much done with Need for Speed, possibly as a franchise, but definitely Unbound.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely there could be a revolution for Need for Speed, but it wasn't this one.
Yeah. So I'm just very quickly glancing at the list again, and it's like, almost every game we played this year was fine. I don't remember playing anything this year that I was like, this game sucks. There were some that I didn't love, but all of them, off the top of my head, like looking at the list, like, were pretty good. And there were some that I was really in love with. You're going to get to hear about a couple of those in the final category. But for me, my worst game club of the year, I thought, was Beat Cop. Not because the game is bad, per se, but because I felt like it had the opportunity to do something like very real with its story idea and its gameplay mechanics, and instead it tried to just be dumb and funny.
It tried to do 2 or 3 different things at once and did none of them well.
Yeah. And I don't think Beat Cop was bad, but Beat Cop to me was something that, like, looking at it, thinking back on it, it's like you could have done so much more. If you had just focused down on one of these aspects or a couple of these aspects, you could have been so much better. And so Beat Cop for me was my least favorite game of the year.
It definitely it definitely was up there for me. They wanted to be the 80s cop show. Well, okay, fine, be that. Then you have, sexist assholes. Okay, well, now you're into, like, late 80s, early 90s gritty movie territory. Okay, fine. And then they moved back over to very cringe-inducing black gangs versus Italians.
Yeah.
Which feels almost like 70s or 60s,
Yeah.
If they had stuck with the idea of a game built to feel like an 80s cop show, which 80s cop shows were so squeaky clean, so sanitized.
Yeah. But
there was never really a question of who the good or bad guys were, like, in more modern storytelling. It could have been an interesting, like, take on the genre, or if they wanted to be more realistic on it, don't try to preface it with saying, "Well, this is an '80s cop show,"
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Like, if they had just picked a lane, or maybe a couple of lanes, and stuck to them, they could have pulled off something that was a lot of fun or very serious and explored some, like, big ideas. But they didn't. They kind of went middle of the road in the worst way. So, yeah, that was my least favorite Game Club game of the year. So, moving into our final block, our final category, or final set of awards for the night. The first one, the Gilded Bird for Biggest Dick Move of the Year award. There were a few contenders, and some aspects of this, I believe, some aspects of this have come up already as kind of a counterpoint to the very first thing that I said. And mine is game unionization again. Now, the very first thing that award that I gave for the most memorable moment of the year was game studio unionization growth. But in the ultra capitalist hellscape that we live in, the game studios have been fighting unionization hard, firing people, threatening people, doing things that are explicitly illegal, even in the United States, but that are not strictly enforced most of the time. And on top of that, like some of the awful, dirty tactics that they've been using, like beyond just regular stuff, scabs, union busting techniques, whatever, like modern problems require modern solutions. And that modern solution for these companies is AI. AI generation of assets, and even so far as like stories and dialogue with using vocal samples and stuff. And there's so much in that sentence to dig into, and we've talked about AI and its applications a couple of times on the show, and I'm sure it'll come up again. But just awful, scummy, dehumanizing behavior, and you expect it from companies, like you should. If you pay attention, like you should expect it from companies, but it still sucks to see. And it's still awful to watch these companies try to grind these people's lives into the dirt for a few more dollars. It just sucks. I hate it. So, fighting unions, biggest tick move of the year, game studios.
Well, for me, and this might just be because I'm more plugged into Splatoon and more Nintendo stuff these days, it's seen Nintendo just going hard on tournaments, just in general. So, back in October, November, Nintendo released a new set of tournament guidelines for Super Smash Brothers and by extension Splatoon and there are other games that get played in the tournament scenes. And it is wild just how hard they crack down. First of all, they said no selling concessions at all. Mind you, these are day-long events at least, with some of them being like entire weekends for some of the more major tournaments.
Yeah.
No artist alleys. So, no like merchandise or anything, which is, also what generates a lot of revenue for not just the tournament, but also, you get artists in, you make essentially a convention out of it. They're forcing, okay. I haven't heard of Nintendo cracking down and actually using these rules yet, but it's also Nintendo. And, Nintendo's known to be such a kind and cuddly company when it comes to their IPs, right?
Right. They're so good at that. They have never, ever gone after somebody.
So they must run the current version, the most updated, with no modifications or emulation or anything. It must be on official hardware, official versions, latest patches, and that's in response to the Super Smash Brothers scene wanting to use emulators during a fucking global pandemic that allowed network play.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was Super Smash Brothers Melee, not Ultimate, for GameCube. They wanted to use emulators that would allow network play for GameCube. Well, this rule now says, not allowed. Mind you, they also sued that tournament to shut it down because, right?
Of course.
They're putting a hard cap on prize money with a maximum of, well, it also depends on the number of participants. Community tournaments are now prohibited from having more than 200 participants, 300 for online tournaments, which sounds like a lot, but 300 for online tournaments, you could easily hit that. With entry fees capped at $20, and the prize pools cannot exceed $5,000 total, and cannot exceed $10,000 in a 12-month year, or 12-month period, I should say. So, if you're running 3 tournaments a year, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to do the 5,000 cap anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely not.
And also, tournaments are not allowed to generate profit. Any surplus money must be returned to participants or spectators. And you can't sell tickets either. So
I'm making faces. You can't see my face. Like,
right?
I don't.
Why? Right?
I don't know what the point of that is. Because in a if we took this with good faith, which I do not, but if we took this with good faith, you might say like, okay, like, well, they're just trying to protect, the individuals, players, consumers, whatever, from being taken advantage of by, tournament holders that do shoddy things. Like, it happens sometimes. But the way that I'm reading this is like them trying to control and therefore shut down the tournament scene.
Or
anything that they don't.
Or tournaments that they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Tournaments that they don't like. Yeah. So.
I mean, they do allow you to submit for a license to get exemption from these guidelines. But it's, yet another hoop to jump through, right?
Yeah.
And it feels more like, it's almost like the whole YouTube thing with them again, where if you're not playing by their rules, they're going to shut you down.
Yeah.
And it's more about the control than the money. So, yeah.
Which checks out. That's an extremely Nintendo thing to do. They have always looked very family friendly, but they, their company, just like anybody or just like any other company.
Or corporation.
Corporation rather. Thank you. But okay, what you got next?
So the I'll Be Back award, the game that we planned on returning to. For me, Space Engineers, I kind of already covered this. Yeah, I kind of set it down because I hit a point where I just needed to step back, and they got consumed by other things. So yeah, short and sweet on that one.
Short and sweet. Mine, I struggled, not because I couldn't think of a game, but because I had so many games. But ultimately, the game that I want to come back to and I really want to finish is Persona 5. I really enjoyed Persona 5. It's up there as a contender for potential Game of the Year award for us. We always discuss that on the show, but like it's in the running for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mechanics. I enjoyed kind of the psychology behind it. I loved the story and all those intricate elements. I love the soundtrack. I still listen to the soundtrack. A whole bunch of the songs from the soundtrack are in my, a couple of my playlists. Such a good soundtrack. And I just like it. It's just a fun, enjoyable game to play that has this weird mix of like very extremely in-depth, detailed storytelling that does not pull any punches and leans into some of the aspects of Japanese culture and looks very shameful topics in the face, but also manages to be extremely humorous and lighthearted, and between the art style and the music and the humor, like something that can make you laugh and smile. It is extremely good, and I want to get back to it. I want to finish that game. I'm going to come back to it this year.
Which I'd basically have to restart because I was playing on Game Pass and they removed it for Tactica, which Tactica, it doesn't click with me.
Yeah. I mean, I also was playing on Game Pass and I'm going to have to restart, but that's okay. I don't mind to restart. I would do some things differently, especially now that I understood the game mechanics a little bit more. I wouldn't like change everything, but I would interact with some of the characters a little bit differently. But anyways,
but then you're going to have to go through the sex castle. Oh wait, that's an added bonus for you.
Oh no!
Oh no, you're going to have to fight the teacher in a thong.
Oh no! As if that's a punishment.
But speaking of punishments,
the Uncanny Valley Award. This game or this award can hit for in different ways, but the Uncanny Valley, in case you don't know, dear listener, is this kind of area where that things start to get really real in some way or another, but they're not 100% there. So there's like a little bit of like this feeling of unease about something, and it most often refers to like graphics of a game, but it can do, or graphics of a game, or some type of artistic medium, but it can be applied in other ways as well. And I picked another Game Club game, another one that for me personally was very highly rated for the year, Road 96. Because of what I do, being a therapist, talking to people about their stories and sort of the story behind the development of this game is a way to express the developers' difficulties dealing with their gender identities and their sort of working with the people in their lives, and as a metaphor for what it means to be that type of person, a queer person in a place that doesn't readily accept queer people. And I'm super oversimplifying the story, like their personal story, like stuff that I've read from them and whatnot. But, what I do as a therapist, I work with that with people all the time. And I have heard these stories of people being, kicked out, disowned, abused for just wanting to be who they are. And Road 96 like really touches on that in a way that is, resonates really strongly with me for what I do and some of the personal stuff that I deal with as well, to a lesser extent. I mean, the whole thing of the game is like politics, and really someone in the world, but especially as an American with the political climate that we have, like seeing that play out is also another aspect of it that hits really close to home, and that is, very, very hard to confront and think about. 2024 is an election year, and I don't know how much you, listener, or you really at Rage at this point because you're working and your life is different now, but engage with the ongoing political machinations of this country.
Well,
but
it's like, put it this way, I got a coworker that watches way too much Fox News.
Yeah, but it's just like, boy howdy, is this wild. This is like a buck wild time that we're living in. And Road 96 hits on some of those things. So, and there's other aspects I'm sure that people can look at it. The way that it's told can strike a lot of people's personal stories. And for me, that's why it's the uncanny valley. It very clearly is looking at and drawing from and building on these real world experiences, but putting it in just a little bit of a hazy place where that it can make you feel uncomfortable and uncertain in a productive way. So there you go.
Yeah, now I really wish I had dug more into the backstory of Road 96, because I didn't back then, and kind of put it out of my mind,
Yeah.
And also, makes the things a little bit more clear, because, oh boy, some things are a little, comes on a little strong in that game, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For me, once again, I'm just going back to Need for Speed Unbound. And it's mostly due to the uncanny valley of those character models. I really struggled with this one this year because nothing really jumped out at me. So I had to go back to the well, right?
Yeah.
Also, how it just never really felt like it gelled into a proper racing game. And I'm not sure if it's just the fact that I'm a bit more of an old school racing guy. And while I do enjoy my arcade racing, it's just felt too slippery. It never really felt like I was in control. Or the fact that, I'm watching the NPCs, do things that felt like my car just couldn't. And I'm not sure if it's just, because I was early in the story, I hadn't unlocked the badass mobile, right?
Yeah.
It just never felt like I was actually, playing the game like it should be playing. And it just felt weird because of it. And then, you get to the end of the race and, you have, this, 2D sprite of a person, make some gang sign, right?
Yeah.
And it might just be because I've been spoiled with, games like, even more modern ones like Forza Horizon feels better than Need for Speed, which is sad.
Forza Horizon, for better or for worse, sets the bar really high for arcade games.
But even like the Dirt series has gone downhill. I mean, I absolutely hated the last iteration that I played of it. There's just so many games that are going more style over substance with their driving model. And Need for Speed is another one of those.
Yeah. There's a way that you can do style that works too, and I don't think Need for Speed did it.
So, moving on to the from the uncanny to the best Game Club game, and well, we're in agreement with this one. Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium. Boy, howdy, was that
a hell of a ride?
Was that a hell of a ride? I think I loved Disco Elysium when I played it a couple of years ago. I loved getting a chance to play it again for Game Club. I loved the story, and I had said at the time, and I think up until Baldur's Gate 3, this was true, that Disco Elysium is the best video game and like presentation of a tabletop role-playing game I had ever played. It is so good at the way that it handles all of those aspects and how that you can do something, and it feels in a way like you're playing at a table with someone, because you're like, oh, I wonder what, like, can I do this? Will the game account for me trying to do this? Will it do something? And then 95% or more of the time, it's yes, it does. It does account for you doing that. And it has a response for you. The story is good. There's a lot of variety in the outcomes. The characters are interesting and deep.
And different paths that you could take throughout it. If you want to be apologetic and try to be a meek person from essentially your reboot. If you want to try to, show off your persona. And that's even before you start getting to the post-launch stuff where they added essentially whole side quests with different political ideologies that you could go down.
Yeah.
Which I never actually got to trigger. Part of me wants to try this again with a different focus.
Yeah.
It's such a shame of what happened to the developer and, I should say the creator between that and the developer. Ironically enough, having it stripped the rights their game stripped away by greedy capitalists, right?
Yeah, that was a really fascinating documentary to watch. I believe it's Jim who sent it to us last year.
Yeah,
that was I watched the whole thing.
It's like shell companies inside of shell companies and wild shit.
Yeah, but buck wild. But yeah,
and it's so sad that we're probably not going to see a second Disco Elysium.
No.
Or if we do, it's not going to be this one.
Yeah. Maybe some kind of like spiritual successor kind of deal, or maybe in, a number of years, somebody will get the rights that can do something with it. But yeah, it doesn't seem likely for now. So, okay. Well, our favorite game, moving on, our next to last award, our favorite game played in 2023. And I've been mentioning it up and down both episodes. I've talked about it several times, a little bit, and it's Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 came in right at the very end of the year, and I was ready to pick one of the Game Club games, or maybe something else that I had dedicated just like a ton of time to this year. Or some mod for some game that I had spent a lot of hours in. And then for Christmas, as you keep saying, his cubeness got us Baldur's Gate 3. So, right after Christmas and before the end of the year, 5 or 6 days, I put 20-something hours into the game. And it's technically cheating, but fuck it, it's our show. We get to make the rules. I have played Baldur's Gate 3 for something like 150 hours. And I still haven't beaten it yet. And there's so much to talk about, and we will do a full deep dive on this game. But Baldur's Gate 3, like I just said a second ago, up until Baldur's Gate 3, Disco Elysium was the best tabletop best video game version of a tabletop game I had ever played. Baldur's Gate 3 takes that. It is so good, and I cannot wait to do a deep dive on this game with you.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to talk to, because I have talked about this with some of my other friends that I play, D&D and other tabletop games with, but they're not video game people, like they like video games, they play video games, but like they don't consume and interact with video games in the way that you and I do. So I cannot wait to have a conversation with someone, because of the way that you look at things. You tend to be a little more mechanically critical than I am. Mm-hmm. And so I can't wait to pick your brain about some of the things in this game and be like, what do you think of this? Am I being too lenient, or are we on the same page, or is it that good? Like, I'm so looking forward to getting into this later with you. So,
yeah, and the only reason why Baldur's Gate isn't mine is that I didn't put enough time into it before the end of the year. Yeah. So it's very likely Baldur's Gate's going to show up for me next year.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's going to be setting a high bar.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Baldur's Gate sets a high bar for the whole industry. I have to say,
yeah, I remember when it came out, and it's part of the reason why I didn't pick it up right away. Is that there were so many articles about how, this sets a new bar. This is, the industry's over, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the industry's not over, but lots of times those articles can be hyperbole.
Yeah.
And,
well, Studio Lorien, they are masters at the CRPG at this point. Between their Divinity Original Sin series and now this, I mean, damn, right?
They own this place in the market. Like, you and I played.
I hope that they don't, decide to cash in on all this goodwill.
Yeah. You and I played.
There's a little cynical spot on me.
Yeah. Well, you and I played the entirety of Divinity Original Sin, the first one, together. And I also had a second playthrough of that game. And I've played Divinity Original Sin 2 all the way through.
Yeah, which I did kind of ruin the final boss.
No. You destroyed the final boss. But that's the thing. Like, that's what tabletop games are all about.
I mean, I stacked up 3 or 4 major buffs.
Yeah. Yeah, you walk into the final boss room to fight God, and instead of it being an even match, you utterly destroyed him. Good job. You did it. I'm so proud of you.
You did lock us in here with you. You locked you in here with me.
With me. Yeah.
It turns out God was secretly a cat. A part of the feline menace.
All along. God, I still remember that. So good. So good. Anyways, carry on.
I'm here. I wanted to make sure I got the right character because, she was a beast.
She was.
And I'm totally blanking on her name now.
It started with an M. Pretty sure. I want to say Missouri, but I don't think that's right. Divinity Original Sin character list.
Medora.
Well, I got the M part right. Oh no, I was close when I said Missouri. I was close.
I mean, we skipped an entire phase of that fight.
Yep. Because of how quickly we destroyed. Well, you with Medora destroyed that dragon. Beautiful. Mwah, loved it.
You had your ranger guy, and I had Godslayer.
Yeah.
It would have been terrible if I missed, but I didn't. So for me, I wanted to pick something that wasn't a game club game. And, that ruled out actually a fair amount of my stuff lately because, working and coming home just bleh, right?
Yeah.
Although, slowly building up a lot more stamina. So I'm from mid to... And I wanted to go into something that kind of opened up something new for me. And for me, I think that has to be Splatoon. I picked it up late in 2022. Or Splatoon 3, I should say. But I played it mostly in 2023, so I think it counts. And did a couple things really well for me. One, it is a more fast-paced shooter than what I usually play, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It actually runs well on the Switch, which for the Switch, that's kind of a miracle at this point. But it got me into more console shooters, and that's through the method of control that the game uses that I've actually adapted to playing on the Steam Deck, where it's a combination of a thumbstick and gyro controls without the need of an aim assist.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, and it kind of taught me how to do it really well without having to really make it dumbed down. Because a lot of Splatoon is projectile based. There's not a hit scan weapon in the game. The closest you can get is the Chargers, which are essentially sniper rifles, but they're still a slight lead off, you know?
Yeah.
But it showed me that, yes, console shooters can be enjoyable. It all comes down to the control scheme, and the control scheme for most of them suck. You know?
Yeah. Playing shooters with a controller, like a, quote unquote, a traditional control scheme on a controller really does suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, every time I watch gameplay on YouTube, like trailers or something, it's like, oh, that's definitely a controller. Oh, that's not. Oh, that is. Because you can always tell a lot of sidestepping and a lot of, slow turns,
Mm-hmm.
But the way Splatoon does it is that for big movements, you're using the thumbstick, and it's a very high sensitivity on it as well. So there's a lot of wild movements. And then for small movements, you're aiming with gyro controls. Either if you're holding the Switch, unfortunately you're moving the screen as well. But if you're using a controller, it makes it a lot better, actually. Making small adjustments to fine-tune things. So I've adapted that to using the Steam Deck, for example, where it has gyroscopic controls as well. But you can set it so it's only whenever you're like touching the thumbstick or touching the trackpad.
Yeah,
and it's made things more bearable. I mean, it's not my preferred method. I still am my mouse and keyboard all the way, but I can shoot things that way. And it has a really wild lore about it. I'm looking forward to the DLC coming out. Hang on, let me check the time. Next month. Well, they're still the 31st. Sorry, for some reason I thought it was the 31st today. My days are so fucked up.
Yeah. Nope. Today is the 30th.
But yeah, the new DLC, which is looking to be like a roguelite shooter, which, oh boy, right?
Yeah.
And just while it's a dribble of content, having something to look forward to every few months coming out has been fun.
Nice. Well, this brings us to our final category, which is the VGL Podcast Game of the Year Award, one that we always discuss.
I'm not sure if there's much of a discussion this year.
Okay.
Disco Elysium.
Yeah. That feels correct. I mean, there were a couple of others that I would have... let me pull the list up over here. There were a couple of others that I've discussed off of the Game Club list that, Persona 5, maybe. Starfield. No, I'm fucking with you.
Don't you wish?
Always. But yeah, Persona 5, Road 96 for me, although I know that you didn't connect with it quite as much as you did. Or as much as I did, rather.
I think that's mostly just due to not knowing the back story of it.
Yeah. Those were kind of the top, I guess you could say, 3 for me.
Yeah,
Disco Elysium, Road 96,
for me, I would have
Persona 5.
done, Disco Elysium, of course, Persona 5, and then, I'd probably do 4, Professor Layton, and Chicory.
Chicory was interesting. I did like Chicory. It didn't rise to quite that level for me, but Chicory was definitely like, top 5, probably 5th for the year for me, 4th or 5th. Like, I just listed off my top 3, but like Chicory was within striking distance.
I mean, Chicory was a surprise. I think if we had our award for biggest game club surprise, it would have definitely won it on that one, just because of how dark it went.
Yeah.
But yeah, Disco Elysium it's just so good.
Yeah. Well, that was easy. You're right. It didn't require much of a discussion. I was curious what you were going to say. I thought Disco Elysium would be one of the potential options you would say. And you were like, not much discussion. It has to be Disco Elysium. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. But I could have been talked into Persona 5, I think, relatively. Like, if I was giving them, like, grades, like, Disco Elysium is like a 100, and Persona 5 is like a 98 or a 99. It's like, I could have been talked into Persona 5 if you had said Persona 5.
I think the problem with Persona 5 for me is that I didn't get as far in it as I wanted, and then I set it down, and Game Pass took it away.
Yeah. The only downside of Game Pass is sometimes games do go away.
I mean, I do have it on Switch. Well, okay, Adita has it on Switch, and I can borrow it.
Yeah.
So I still have access to Persona 5, but I can't transfer the save file, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this year just got, off to such an amazing start with Disco Elysium.
Yeah, it set the pace for the year in a way that I don't think...
Road 96, I think, got really hurt with just its placement on the list.
Yeah. I don't think, we've only said what the January Game Club game is, SteamWorld Build, but I don't think anything on the list is gonna do what Disco Elysium did that we've got on the list so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to everything on the list this year, but man, Disco Elysium is a great one. It's up there. So, I'm looking at the past years too, what games in the past have hit me in the same way Disco Elysium did. I'm looking at 2020. Now I'm in 2019. 2018.
I mean, it's probably up there for best game club we've done, period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple I'm looking at being yeah, those were really good, super memorable. I love them. But even the mighty BattleTech, my reasons for loving BattleTech are very deep and very long running, long standing. But what Disco Elysium does is so good. It sets it off apart on its own. So,
and it comes out swinging right from the bat, right from the get go.
Yeah, Disco Elysium. I think you're right. Disco Elysium may be the best Game Club game we've ever played
so far. Looking at this list, though, we have played a lot of really good games over the years. We've had some stinkers, to be sure, but we've played some really good games. And sometimes things surprise us on a good side or a bad side.
Yeah. Let's see. Bastion. First Game Club we ever did. Bastion. Good stuff. To the Moon. Good. Mm-hmm. Papers, Please. Good. Alan Wake. Good. Life is Strange. Boy, that was a good one, too.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow of the Colossus. Overrated. Brothers, A Tale of Two. I'm not going to sit here and read the entire list. There's 70 games on here?
We originally were trying to do them once every 2 weeks, which, boy, that was a mistake.
Yeah. 8. Oh, gee, really? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 years worth of Game Club.
Mm-hmm.
We've not quite managed 12 a year every year. There's been a couple years where we haven't done it, but, let's just call that average 10 a year. That's 80 games that we have played and talked about over the years. Boy, howdy. This has been a wild ride. 10 years. Or not 10 years, 8 years.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh boy, now that we feel old.
Well, maybe I'm old.
Maybe I'm old, but we've been doing this a long ass time. Anyways, okay. Let's wrap it up for the night. Any final thoughts, last words, parting words before we get them the socials and everything?
Not really. Outside of damn, I'm tired. I feel old.
Feel very old. That's okay. All right. Well then, hey Rage, why don't you hit him with them socials?
Well, I've been Caffeine Rage. You could contact me on the Blue Burb, Gaming of CR, or if you would just be my friend on Steam, Caffeine Rage over there. And you've been?
I have been Jared. You can, of course, contact me on our Discord. You can find me on Twitter at JMA4707. Find me on Blue Sky under the same handle. And, you can just, I guess, find me if you live near me, I suppose. Might be weird, but, you can find me. I've talked about the town that I live in a number of times. You know where to go. I'll give you a hug and blow you a kiss if you come see me. And then I'll be like, why did you do this?
Because I want to join the commune. I'm a professional chicken man now. Bring me a pressure fryer.
Excellent. Come on in.
I'll make you chicken.
I shall eat that chicken. Anyways.
Yeah, but it's going to be breaded, so there's going to be carbs.
That's fine. I don't mind. I like carbs. I can just do more drugs. That's why they exist.
Yeah, now price capped. Or going to be.
Going to be. Mwah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Good thing to see when it happens. Anyways.
Well, if you wish to contact us about about our awards, if you wish to talk about any of our choices, or what you would have done, you can do so vglpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us, VGL Podcast, on the Twitter. Our lovely, lovely patrons have paid for the stress I've destroyed. You can find out more at patreon.com/VGL Podcast. Our intro and outro music, I forgot the website, vglpodcast.podbean.com, which will have the show notes, which will probably just be a list of timestamps for the blocks, unless Jared feels very compelled to put more effort in.
Definitely not.
But you can find a link to the Discord at the top to be able to drop in and join our discussions. Or just send us stuff on there, because that also works. Our intro and outro music is whatever song we're playing right now.
Yes.
By Kevin McLeod. You can find his work over at incompetech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye now.
See ya.
Bye.